Hello Vikings and welcome back to the channel. As you can probably see from the image, we are back on another wishlist video. This time with American AA. Actually, one of the reasons why I started this whole series to begin with was for AA to fill out some of the gaps we have in the game. And yeah, let's get into it. We got this thing, the T249 MGMC. It was developed in late 1943, based off of the Greyhound, the M8 Greyhound hull, fitting a new turret. However, the project was cancelled because the M16 was being developed at the same time and was chosen in favor over this one. The specs of it, we got a 6x6 chassis, I mean, obviously, Greyhound chassis, 5 meters long, 2.54 meters wide, and 2.25 meters tall, weighing in at 7.89 ton. Powered by a Hercules GXD 6-cylinder inline, 110 horsepower, 89 kilometers an hour. I mean, standard Greyhound. The armament is where it gets interesting. We got a quad 12.7 M2 Browning, hence the new turret, and it is a crew of 3. This is effectively very similar to the M16, so this would probably make a pretty good premium or event AA. I want more of those. We currently only have, well, half of one. It's classed as an AA, but it's not an AA in Russia. Anyway. Next up, we got the T77E1 GMC. It was developed in 1945 as a replacement for the M16, adding firepower and improving protection. However, it was cancelled as World War II ended, and it wasn't deemed to be efficient enough to deal with jets. We got the hull and power plant of a standard chassis, but we got a new turret with 6 12.7 millimeter Brownings, M2 Brownings. And not only that, but both crew members in the turret are able to fire and control. In actuality, the guns were individually operated, so each gunner, so to say, had elevation control for half of the guns, but I think implemented into the game it should just be dual fire control, so you can lose one of your turret crew without losing ability to shoot. From what I was able to find, it has a crew of 3 and would probably make a good supplement around the same BR as the M19. And we have something a little different, the T85 GMC, or MGMC, I suppose technically. It was an attempt to make an AA vehicle based off of the M3 and M5 Stuart hulls. Started in 1942 using a expanded chassis based off of the Stuarts by adding a 3rd bogie. 2 vehicles with different types of gun mounts were tested in 44, but the project was abandoned in favor of something similar on the M24, M19. Yeah, as this was going on, similar trials were made on M19 and I believe another similar vehicle. I can't find anything specific on the hull or the power plant, but I would assume that there is very little armor and the engine remains the same as on an M5 Stewart. Of course, slightly longer and slightly lower. But the important part is the armament. 4 20mm cannons in an open quad mount, as you can see on the back there. Giving some much needed high rate of fire AA for the US, and would probably sit nicely around 4.3, 4.7. Then we got a T36 GMC. This one was developed in 1941 and was an attempt to pair the 40mm Bofors that was already quite popular with the M3 Lee chassis. The design of the turret was highly insufficient. It only provided 2 degrees of gun depression, not the 10 that was intended. On top of that, because of the top-loading clip on the Bofors and gravity feed, the gun couldn't be loaded unless it was elevated 10 degrees at least. 2 prototypes were built, but a lot of flaws, including the ones I just mentioned, as well as low ammo storage, meant the project was cancelled in 1943. The specs for the vehicle, I couldn't find anything specific on the hull. There's obviously some changes to the armor, but the power plant and overall dimensions would probably remain the same. The turret is 2 inches or 50mm of cast armor, at least in the front. And, well, obviously the armament is the 40mm Bofors. Just the single one, but on an armored AA, which... an enclosed armored AA. Which would be nice, would be something different. Next up, we got the T52 MGMC, another design created in 1942 for an entire vehicle, this time based off of the M4 Sherman. Consisted of a ball turret, well, cylinder turret, more like. It wasn't full-on ball, but rounded turret, in the wrong direction, with various guns strapped to it. The design of it, however, meant that spent casings from the machine guns would, or could, end up falling into the turret traverse and jam it. The specs of it, we got a fairly standard, from the pictures I've been able to find. Is it the A2 that's welded? I can't remember. It's fairly standard welded German hull, and power plant, of course. The turret differs, but can't find any armor specifics. The armament, however, is a 40mm Bofors mounted centrally in the turret, and 2 12.7, probably M2 Brownings, mounted on the sides of the turret. 2 crew in the turret as well, and, well, a driver, possibly co-driver, so 3 or 4 crew. It had extremely low ammunition count for the 40mm, but I still think it could work in game because of the 50mm secondaries. 12.7, 50 cal 7 secondaries. Next up, we got an improvement of an existing vehicle, with the ZSU 37-2 having been moved down to 7.7. That has opened up for radar AA to be at lower BRs than 8.0, And for that exact reason, I put the M42 Raduster or Raduster on my list. It's a standard M42 Duster equipped with a new T50 radar, tracking and ranging, so targeting radar. No search radar though. From what I've been able to find, this is essentially an earlier version of the radar fitted to the M163, but I'm really not sure about that. This would make a nice vehicle for 7377 for the US, to give them something a bit more capable than just the Duster in that BR range. I mean, given crappy target tracking, and we're good to go. Still a terrible vehicle overall. Oh well. The specs, I mean, they don't change. It's an M42 with a tested mount for a radar. As you can see from the picture, it never actually went into service. It was just a test bed, one-off prototype thing. But it would make it a bit easier to hit targets at long range with the Duster. Then we got a bit of a jump in technology. We are going straight from the M42 to the T249 Vigilante. It was developed as part of a program to replace the 40mm Bofors and the Duster, so not really that big of a jump, really. This is the biggest bird gun ever produced, biggest rotary cannon ever produced. However, it was cancelled in favor of the M46 Mauler, an early missile AA on the M113 chassis. But later it got revived, rechambered, and fitted to an M48 chassis as part of the DevEd trials, which also included the M247. We could have either variant in game, really, as it's the same turret assembly, it's just the hull that differs. Well, same turret assembly, and hull and caliber differs slightly. It is an M113 hull, lengthened, of course, on the original vehicle. Though, once more, I haven't been able to find any specs on the hull or power plant for this particular vehicle, as these are some fairly obscure prototypes. However, later, as I said, the exact same turret was mounted on an M48 hull. So that would, of course, be easier to find data on. The armament is a single 37mm rotary cannon with a 192 round drum mag. Big issue with this one is that 192 rounds at max rate of fire gives you 4 seconds of shooting. And I don't exactly see any way to carry additional ammo. So have fun with that. I still want it though. Later, for the DVAT system, the gun was rechambered for the 35mm, also used on the, well, everything using 35mm for NATO. Last up for the US, we got the M6 Linebacker. It was developed to work alongside the Bradleys, as well as other forward armored units, as a close air defense vehicle. Visually, it's very similar to the M2 Bradley. However, well, missile pod is obviously different. The specs, it is 6.55 meters long, 3.61 meters wide, and 2.97 meters tall, weighing in at 29.9 tons, just shy of 30. Powered by the Cummins VTA 903, 600 horsepower and a top speed of 61 kilometers an hour. Armament, it retains the single 25mm M242 Bushmaster, and instead of the ATGMs, we got a quad Stinger launcher with 8 additional missiles in storage. And rounding off the list, we got the one vehicle that everybody was probably thinking of the moment I said American AA. The Canadian representative, the M4 Skink. It was developed in late 1943, early 1944, to fill the Canadian Army's requirement for an SPAA. However, as the Luftwaffe had very little presence over Europe at that point, the project was cancelled in 1944 with only 3 conversions built. Of course, all based on the Grizzly, not the Sherman. Minor details, just the Canadian Sherman, really. It is 5.82 meters long, 2.62 meters wide, and has a height of 3 meters. It weighs in at 28.5 tons and is powered by the R9, well, Continental R975C1 radial engine, 350 horsepower and a top speed of 38.5 kilometers an hour. The armament are quite prominently displayed. The 4 20mm Polston autocannons and a crew of 4, 2 in the turret and 2 in the hull. That is going to be it for this video. I did have a few other maybe vehicles, but I weren't that big of a fan when I read up on them further. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think I've missed. And I hope well, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I already kind of said comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe mostly. I hope I will see you in the next one.